Ladies, gentlemen, and legends of all ages, the main draw of any Pokemon game at the end of the day is of course the Pokemon themselves. The creature designs are the reason that any Pokemon fan falls in love with the series, pretty much bar none. That said, one of the big main initial projects in any Pokemon game is to find and collect your ideal team of 6, your main party of Pokemon. And unless you're lucky enough that your perfect team will permanently be using like the starter Pokemon, or if you want one of the few Pokemons you get guaranteed for free during missions, you're gonna have to catch them. And without breeding being a part of this game at all, the actual catching Pokemon part specifically does mean a lot more too, not to mention alpha Pokemon, which are extra desirable for a few reasons, including having 3 perfect IVs guaranteed, as well as just being physically larger than non-alpha Pokemon, which is mostly just an aesthetic thing, but if you like them big, if you like them chunky, alphas are the way. That said, catching Pokemon is a big deal, and catching them all can be quite tough. So now that some initial data mining has been done by members of the community and we know some actual numbers, I want to stop and break down every method of making it easier to catch a Pokemon possible, the sort of priority order of which things matter most in different situations, so you know what you should care about in different use scenarios, because here are a couple of examples of a Pikachu that has a 4.81% catch chance, and here's one that has a 99.77% catch chance. There are only 2 different factors between those 2 calculations, very simple changes, but extremely large impact. And before you think I'm trying to pull a fast one on you, this isn't like, well, a high level one versus a low level one, or a full health one versus a 1% health one. First up, before we even get into it, we need to talk about the blue Canari plush. You can buy this in exchange for colorful screws from the construction building located here on your map in the southeast. The screws are rewards for the parkour, scaffolding challenges around the map, and we do have a video up on the channel already with a bunch of easy early screw locations if you want to grab a bunch of them in a burst. And if you are trying to catch higher tier Pokemon like high level alphas, I highly recommend grabbing as many ranks of this plush as you can first, as it makes a pretty sizable difference. That mentioned, we've got some overarching rules for how catch rate works that are worth knowing. All Pokemon have different base capture rates. Something like a Weedle, for example, is massively easier to catch than something like an Eevee, even if all of the other conditions are perfectly equal. Some Pokemon are simply harder to catch than others because of their species. As well, higher Pokemon level will make them generally harder to catch. In a very simple way of stating that, in most Pokemon games this is related to gym badges and the obedience stat, which essentially says if you have like 4 or less gym badges, you have a penalty on catch rate against Pokemon that are above a set level. In this game, replace the concept of badges with your rank in the Z-A Royale and its equivalent, so the higher your rank, the less of a penalty you get when catching higher level Pokemon. I won't bore you with like a million specific breakpoints, so just that general concept is enough to understand. On top of that, alpha Pokemon are significantly harder to catch than non-alpha Pokemon of the same species, which makes sense because they are more potent, they are more powerful, they're more desirable to have, and the other factor is that shiny Pokemon as well are much easier to catch than their non-shiny counterparts, to try and avoid the frustration of a shiny Pokemon showing up but then escaping. Aside from that stuff then, the best way to do this is to split it up into relevant categories. Out of combat catching, also known as stealthy sneak throws, in combat catching, also known as the backup plan, and then finally just mass catching of lower tier easy Pokemon for things like farming research points for your research level ups. So first, let's start off with out of combat catching, as in most scenarios it is the most generally relevant and applicable, and you'll always really want to be doing this the first capture attempt even if you don't do it consistently. That said, different Pokeballs are essentially different multipliers on your chance of catching a Pokemon. For the specific purpose of talking about throwing a ball from stealth, the best option by a country mile is the Quick Ball. In previous Pokemon games, this increased the catch rate on turn 1 of combat. In this game, it increases your catch rate if the opponent Pokemon hasn't used a move yet, and if you also haven't hit it with an attack yourself. So essentially the same conditions as having a Pokemon count as being unaware. On which note, whether the Pokemon is aware of you or not is in itself a catch rate multiplier. Usually you can tell this by if a Pokemon is either attacking you or running away from you. If it's not attacking you or running away from you, it's not aware of you. Generally speaking, a Pokemon that is out of combat is around double the catch rate of a Pokemon that is in combat. On top of this, if you throw a Pokeball from behind the Pokemon, Pokemon, meaning that you throw it at its back, your catch rate will increase again, and this more or less triples the catch rate. And that is on top of the bonus from them being unaware to begin with. Those do stack. Neither of these bonuses apply to Pokemon that are in combat, but both of them can apply together and stack when doing stealthy throws. And that's it. That's the whole thing for stealth throws. That's all you have to consider. Quick Ball on an unaware enemy from behind, simple as that. The Quick Ball itself is the most important part of it. The from behind part is the second most important part of it, and the unaware part is a requirement to do either of those other things. For the Pikachu example that we talked about earlier, the 5%-ish one is that it is aware of you and that you are using a regular Pokeball. The 99% is it is unaware of you and you are using a Quick Ball, but that's not even with the backstrike factored in either. That is literally just unaware and Quick Ball. That's it. So with the backstrike, it would stack even harder. To show this in action, here is a much more on-level, difficult capture target. Line things up right, and you can catch it way easier than you would be able to otherwise. And all those things that I've mentioned sort of go hand in hand with each other. They're sort of attached. The next main use case then is in combat catching, meaning Quick Ball won't work here, the Pokemon will be aware of you, and the backstrike is out of the question entirely. Generally speaking, if you want to catch a Pokemon, you always want to start with the stealth option, because if the stealth option fails, you are immediately just in combat anyways, and you can move to plan B, which is combat catching. That said, as far as how to maximize your catch rate during combat, there's a few things you can do. First and foremost, the most important thing is the Pokemon's health. At full 100% HP, a Pokemon is of course way harder than it is to catch at 1 HP. This game does add a new mechanic called stun. When you lower a wild Pokemon to a full 0 HP, you literally defeat them, they are then even easier to catch than they were at 1 HP. So it's essentially an extra bonus, and it's a pretty major one too, but the main downside is if you fail to catch a stunned Pokemon, they will disappear instantly. So you only get one try, one shot, one opportunity once you reach this point of the fight, but it is a much higher chance of success than a singular throw would be at any point during the fight, or even comparable to stealth throws. The next consideration then is status conditions. There are various statuses you can apply to Pokemon, and every one of them does increase catch rate while applied. Poison, paralysis, and burn are around a 40% increase to your catch chance, whereas sleep and frozen are around a 100% increase. So sleep and freeze are the premium options for this specific bonus, but a Pokemon also cannot be both stunned and have a status at the same time, so status matters for throws during combat, but not for an actual stun throw. Then we have the Pokeball that we'll be using as well, of course. The best option to use if your target can exist at night is the Dusk Ball. This will only work at night or in caves, but while it's active, it is a pretty solid multiplier to your catch rate. If your target only exists during the day, then you can't use Dusk Balls. But there are two balls with relatively similar multipliers that may still apply. The Repeat Ball gives you a bonus if you have already caught a member of that species before, so if it's your first time catching a Pokemon, it won't do anything. If it's your second or beyond, big multiplier. An equal multiplier exists on the Net Ball, which is the one that applies only to water and bug type Pokemon. So if a Pokemon exists at night, Dusk Ball is the best. If it is water or bug type, Net is the best. If neither of those things apply, but you caught at least one of that Pokemon before, Repeat is the best. If none of those three effects applies, just use an Ultra Ball, honestly, pretty much. There are things you can do with the other balls, but they are so specific, it's not really worth getting into this for general advice, but be aware they exist and they could apply. So to put it all together then, for in-combat catching, the lower health the Pokemon has, the easier it is to catch. Stun is easiest, but if you fail a throw on a stunned Pokemon, it escapes instantly, and health is the largest factor in combat catch rate. Then the actual ball choice is your second largest factor, so make sure that you get that correct as well. Then if you want to throw balls before you reach the stun part of the fight at the end, you would benefit greatly from applying a status. Any of them will help, but sleep and freeze are the two that give the best results. The third main use scenario then is just mass catching little dudes, which is mostly just for filling out your research points. A lot of research objectives in the game are things like catch a number of bug type Pokemon, and then you complete it and get a new version with a higher caught number requirement, and the easiest way to complete these is by just walking through low-level wild zones and throwing balls at literally everything you pass with minimal thought required. So the point of this one is min-maxing as much as possible through minimal effort and without slowing you down too much in your actual movement. Most lower-level, lower-tier Pokemon Pokemon that you would use this method for aren't actually aggressive with you to start with, which means it is very easy on those ones to get free, unaware ball throws. Quick balls are fantastic for that for obvious reasons. You can also try to line up back shots if you want even higher chances, but for a lot of low-level stuff, that is a little bit overkill. If you do end up in combat, just go for the stun and the singular throw of your highest multiplier Pokeball for the situation you have, based on the options we talked about before. But generally, for this specific activity, I recommend the repeat ball for general use outside of stealth throws, as the purpose of this is catching loads and loads of a Pokemon of the same species, which is exactly what you're doing here. But generally speaking, this is the simplest of all of the sections. That said, now let's get into actual tips and tricks for these scenarios outside of just catch rate manipulation, literally just ways to make catching things easier. As far as sneak catching, again, this should be the first thing that you try in any situation that you want to actually catch the Pokemon, as if you fail, you just enter combat anyways. The main trick to this is the actual act of sneaking up close enough to be in range of a ball throw, and also angling so that you're throwing it at the back. The two big tricks to making this work are crouching and breaking line of sight. A Pokemon will always notice you if you get too close to it and you're not crouching. The specific range where crouching becomes required is hard to explain with words, so much as it just takes a bit of trial and error yourself to find the sweet spot. The second part of that is breaking line of sight. Things like bushes are somewhat obvious, where if you are crouched in a bush, even if a Pokemon is like 3 feet away, looking right at you, it won't attack you. But this also applies to like any physical object. If there is a street lamp between you and a Pokemon, it can't see you. If there is a bench, it can't see you. So use the terrain, use the natural obstacles to your advantage when you're trying to sneak up to line up a perfect throw. As well, usually Pokemon work on like mini patrol cycles, by which I mean if you can't see its back at your current angle, you should just wait a little bit and see if it wants to move, because it will probably turn around, move a little bit, and give you the opportunity to get that back strike. The big thing that you can do with this then is once you have lined up that perfect throw, stealth, backstrike, quick ball, all ready to go, before you throw the ball, open your menu, save the game. This way, if you fail the throw, if they get out, they escape or whatever, you can just close the game, reopen, and you will load into that perfect position, ready to throw that perfect stealth ball again. For a lot of situations, this is generally quite excessive, but where it really comes in handy is either for shiny Pokemon specifically, just to make sure that you don't lose them, or the much more common use application is alpha Pokemon. Alphas are strong, alphas are hard to catch, but if you line up the perfect stealth throw, you get a pretty good shot at taking them down. And if you save and reload, you can take that pretty good shot an infinite number of times until it works out in your favor. Next up then, we have catching Pokemon during combat, and there are two main things that I recommend having if possible. The first is a Pokemon with a big area of effect move like Surf or Earthquake. A lot of the time when you're dealing with wild Pokemon, especially in the wild zones, you'll end up with more targets than just ones that you're trying to catch, with others just getting in the way, becoming obstacles, or damaging your Pokemon, so a nice big AoE move will generally clear out the riffraff, the little guys, and let you get back to your main enemy, the one that you really want. The other big recommendation that I have is just a sort of Pokemon archetype, which is something really tanky that can apply a good status like Sleep or Freeze. The tankiness is because it will just let it tank hits while you throw balls on repeat as necessary, and the status is because statuses increase catch rate in general, with Freeze and Sleep being the highest multipliers. As for mass Pokemon catching, pretty much just walk through the area throwing your balls at them. This one has the least sort of tips as far as just catching things that are quite low level in comparison to you, so I would say what you should do is try the lowest effort possible, which is just throwing a decent ball at something that doesn't see you. If that works out, and it works out consistently, just keep doing that. If that fails once or twice, maybe start trying to also hit them in the back specifically, and the trick to this is just working out the right balance of speed and efficiency in relation to catch chance, because you don't want to fail your throws, because combat itself will slow you down more than anything else, but lining up back shots is also a fair bit more effort. Finally then, let's talk about alpha Pokemon specifically and put all of this to use and give a solid comparison with examples, and it's worth noting in all the footage today we've got the level 2 Canari plush, not even the full level 3 version. And before we get into this, I do feel the need to mention that you can reset areas searching for specific alpha Pokemon. Some alpha Pokemon will always show up in the wild zone they're attached to, some alpha Pokemon are a chance to show up in the wild zone, some alpha Pokemon don't show up in wild zones in the first place but are randomly throughout the world. But if the alpha Pokemon that you know can be there isn't there and you want it to be there, you need to just simply reset the area. You can do this by fast traveling even to a place that you're already at. It will do a respawn of all the enemies around you, or you can do it by like doing any sort of loading screen, like going in and out of a building will also do the same thing. That said, right here then we've got a capture rate calculator. The link for this will be below the video if you do want to fiddle inside of it yourself for any specific Pokemon or situations you want to know about, but just to sort of visualize all the stuff we've been talking about, this is a catch that we got on Gourgeist. Full stealth mode. This is a level 52 alpha Pokemon, so it's intended to be quite hard to catch outright. We hit it in the back, unaware, with a quick ball, and we catch it. The actual representation of this in the calculator, numerically, and when you factor in all the different things that we've been putting together here, you get up to a catch trait chance here of 87.49% on a level matching alpha Pokemon. So it's pretty good once you start adding all this stuff together. Next up here, let's just adjust this to talk about Banette. This is a Banette that we captured with the combat version of our setup. Nighttime, so Dusk Ball. Pokemon is stunned for maximum singular throw catch chance. Again, it is a level 53 alpha Pokemon, and this exact set of circumstances makes us hit a 99.92% capture rate, which is not quite, but essentially guaranteed. And again, you do only get one chance at this specific throw. With it being this high of a chance, it is always worth doing, but in scenarios where the target is a tougher catch, only having one chance at the throw is a really big factor, because instead of it being 99.9%, it could be like 75%, and while that's relatively high, you can still fail it, and then have to redo the whole thing entirely. So if we turned off the stunned modifier specifically, and treat it as just being purely 1 HP, that is around a 27.5% catch chance, and if we apply either sleep or freeze on top of that, it jumps up to around 53.8% chance. In comparison, let's put in all of the same factors, but set it up as a stealth throw instead, meaning it is full health, not stunned, no statuses, it's unaware, and we hit the back strike with a quick ball specifically. That version is around a 63% catch chance. This is just one specific example, but that one provides some pretty good context. The stealth throw is 63% chance, but if you use the save and reload method, you can get that 63% chance an infinite number of times until it works. The absolute highest singular chance throw would be when you have fully depleted the Pokemon's HP, so they are stunned, and it goes up to 99% in this specific example. But you only get one chance at that, full stop, and the best you can do during combat before that point is around 54% at best. To summarize what that is properly, sneaky throws are best if it is a Pokemon you really want to catch, and if you are willing to do the save and reload cheese method to do it over and over. Regardless though, whether you're doing that or not, you should always open with the sneak throw just in case it works. If you choose not to do the save and reload method, then you would enter combat. Apply sleep or freeze ideally while you are lowering the Pokemon's health until it becomes red bar. Then you want to just start chucking the appropriate Pokeball at it. If they enrage and start blocking Pokeballs entirely, that's when you basically have to do the full kill and get your singular chance stun throw. The stun throw is the highest singular chance you can get, but it's not reliable, and so I generally don't recommend actively aiming for that to be your only shot at taking a Pokemon in if you care about it, so much as just using your last chance if you end up in that situation. The sneak is the second best singular throw, but it's only reliable if you abuse saving and loading, and if you do that, then it is the best choice by far. That just about does it for today then, everyone. Just a full guide to catching Pokemon as a general concept, how to maximize your chances in the important scenarios that you'll often find yourself in the game, some tips for making it easier to apply that in a practical situation. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and hopefully it helps you out in your continued journey up through the alphabet. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.